Hi, and welcome to another scrapbooking process video. I'm Tracy, also known as MercyTiara, and today I'm working with the Brighter Days kit from MercyTiara Kits. The link is in the information section below if you'd like to check out our kits. I'm basically starting with a piece of Pink Fresh Studio paper, that paper that's off to the right there, and I'm cutting strips from the Paige Evans paper that came in the kit. If you saw my last layout, which was entitled Prom, you've already seen this footage. There's only 1 minute of it and it's super fast. I've actually sped it up to 8 times the speed, which most of my videos are 4 times the speed. So the whole video won't be this long, but I just wanted to reuse this footage because this is the background that I made for my prom layout, but then I quickly decided I didn't want to use it for this photo. As you can see, it's a little bit too busy, and I had in mind a layout that used a white background for that photo. So I'm not exactly sure why I went down this road on this for this photo, but in the same sitting, I'm going to scrapbook both of these pages, so it's okay. I'm just using some liquid glue here, and the reason I switched to liquid glue is that I can run it right down the very, very centers of these strips and still have the edges of the strip not be adhered to the paper. If I used a tape runner, it's wider and it would be harder to pull up some of the edges. So this is how it looks before it's sewn and the edges are pulled up. So I do want to pull up the edges, but first I want to do my sewing because it's hard to sew over something that's bumpy. So in a second here, I'm just going to grab my sewing machine, which I keep up to my right on a shelf. I have 2 of these super light half-size sewing machines. I do get a lot of questions about these, and unfortunately, I don't think you can buy these new anymore. They are by Genome or Genome, and the model was, this one is called the Sew Mini, although mine is the Kenmore version, which was just called a Kenmore half-size sewing machine. But it's exactly the same as the Genome Sew Mini. And I also have a Genome New Home, which is basically the exact same machine. It's just a newer model of it. And they made the one called New Home for a couple of years. And I'm pretty sure you can't get it anymore because a few of the people I've sent off looking for it have come back and said that they can't find it. So my apologies about that. But if you ever see this used or at a yard sale or something, pick it up. This is a workhorse of a machine. It is just as good as my full-size Singer sewing machine, but it is half the size. I can easily lift it with one hand. I actually store it on a very high shelf, and it's easy to take it up and down off of the shelf, which is really great. And obviously, it's less size on your table and whatnot. And it's perfect for sewing on paper because you don't have to use any of the fancy settings or anything. It does have quite a few different stitch options, but I usually just either use the straight stitch or the zigzag. So I am just sewing through here, and you see that the footage is a little bit different for this video than most of mine, and that's because this is one of 5 layouts that I created during a 6-hour live stream with my Patreons. It was a blast. We had so much fun, and so I wanted to make the footage into process videos, even though it takes a little bit more time to make this footage into a process video, because I really love how these layouts turned out. So I'd love to share the process with you folks who weren't able to be there on the live stream. Just a heads up that I do actually plan to do a few live streams for non-Patreons. So I will be doing some public live streams at some point in the near future. So keep an eye out on my channel. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that if you're interested in scrapping along with me for a couple of hours. So as you can see, I'm just showing up close because some of my patrons were interested in how the stitching looks, and I was playing around with the tension, with the thread tension, because it wasn't sewing exactly perfectly, but I got it sorted out. And I didn't go back and redo the stitches that were not on the right tension because it doesn't really matter. I just like the stitching to be there. I don't care if it's perfect. Now, this is something that you can do that's just optional. So I don't typically backstitch on my projects when I'm working on a scrapbooking page, unless if maybe I'm doing a mini album that's going to be handled a lot. So one option for reinforcing your stitching, just to make sure that it doesn't come undone, especially if it's not going right into a page protector, is to just put little bits of washi tape over the edges of the back side of your stitching. So now I'm going to pull these up. Now that they're stitched in place, I'm just going to pull up the edges of each of these little strips. It just gives it a real three-dimensional look and lots of texture. And that's one of the best things about layering strips on top of like a tone-on-tone, strip-on-strip kind of look, is that it gives you an opportunity to add so much rich texture to your page. And in a few minutes, I'm going to insert a couple of freeze frames that will give you a chance to have a closer look at all of that texture. It does take a little bit of time to pull up those edges, especially that bottom one where I used a tape runner. So it was stuck down a little bit better than the other ones. And I did sew right through the glue. I use my sewing machines exclusively for scrapbooking, and so I don't have any qualms about stitching through glue. It will gunk up your machine faster, so there's the freeze frames for that. And so you might just need to have your machine serviced a little bit more frequently if you're sewing through glue, but it doesn't, I don't know. I've been doing this for years and I haven't had a huge problem with it, but I wouldn't do that with your best sewing machine. Like these are just little, $70, $80 sewing machines. So I don't mind taking the risk, and it hasn't been a problem. I'm going to pop up this photo so that I don't have to flatten all that texture behind my photo. And I'm just aligning those little pieces of foam adhesive. Those are from Stampin' Up! And I'm just doubling them up because those are the thinner kind. And that way my photo will stand up over top of those really textured strips that are popping up off the page. I'm going to use this it's Eclair font. I had Elise on my mind. She's one of my patrons. I'm going to use this Eclair font, and I just decided to make the letters look like they're sitting on the line there between the green and the purple. And I'm spelling out party, and I don't really have enough of these letters. This is, I think, the 6th or the 7th layout that I've used these letters on, so I'm running out of some of the more common letters. I do still have enough. I'm going to use this another couple of times, I think, in this sitting, but I'm not going to be able to get what I want out of that letter set. So I'm going to go into my stash for some extra letters. I thought about just calling it Party, but that doesn't feel like enough of a title. My idea is to call it Post-Prom Party. A little bit of alliteration for you there. And so because we have these swatches of color across the background, this layout is begging for tone-on-tone embellishments. And that's what I'm going to do when it comes time to embellish. But first, I want to have a look at my letter stickers. I have these Doodlebug Alphas that are obviously from my stash. They're not from the kit. And I have them in yellow and I have them in pink. And I wish I had them in purple because I'd love to put yellow, like spell out post and put it on the yellow strip, and spell out prom in purple and put it on the purple strip. But I just have them in yellow and pink. So I have a couple of permanent markers here. I have a Stampin' Up! Alcohol marker, which really just makes it a different shade of pink. But I also had this purple Sharpie marker. I experimented with a couple of different shades and I ended up going with this purple. It's not perfect, but it's a nice purple. And it will kind of fit with my tone-on-tone look that I'm going for with this page. So it just so happens that all the letters that I need were all right one above one another. So that was kind of handy. I didn't have to search around for the next letter. So I'm going to align these all over to the left side. Alignment is something, it's a design principle that can give your page a pulled together look. so it kind of draws your eye to know where the titles all start. And it also kind of accentuates the line of the photo, which obviously the photo is the main focal point of this page. So we're spelling out here post prom party, which was the title I was hoping to be able to use. So I'm happy to be able to dip into my stash for those letters to make that work. And now I'm just having a look at what I have here that are the colors that are on the layout. So I'm pulling out, some bright pinks, some purples, some yellows, that kind of mint green color. And I'm just placing these things on the page. And these circles, these are chipboard Flair from Pink Fresh Studio. They came in the kit, and they're going to become the anchors for my other embellishments. I just wish I had one. So far I have one for every strip. A pink, a yellow, a purple, a mint green, and I don't have a blue. So I went into my stash and I got my 1-inch punch, but it turns out this is bigger. I thought it was the same size as those flare badges, but those flare badges are bigger than 1/4 of an inch and smaller than a 1-inch. So, I mean, I could have just used that 1-inch punched circle. It wouldn't have been the end of the world to have one of them be bigger, but I have these circle dies from Waffle Flower on hand, and so it's easy enough to run it through my die cut machine, my little mini Cuddle Kid there, and that gives me the perfect sized circle. Now this is paper and the other things are chipboard, so I'm going to grab a dimensional adhesive piece and put that in the center so that it's popped up as if it was a chipboard flare like the other ones on the page. But before I do so, I'll notice that all of the other chipboard flare pieces have little designs in the center of them. So I was checking out my stash of small stamps, and I came up with this one that says, good stuff right here. And I don't have my stamp chamois handy. It's handy, but it's dry, hard as a rock. So I just used a baby wipe to clean my stamps. It's okay in a pinch. Sometimes baby wipes will leave some fibers behind. I find that different brands leave more or less fiber, and I find that Huggies baby wipes are the least fibrous of them all. So I keep those on hand in my scrap room all the time. So there's the basic gist of this page. Now I have those chipboard flare pieces that are basically like the anchors of where my embellishment clusters will go. I have this confetti mix that came in the kit that I thought about using, but I ultimately decided against. And then these labels from the Paige Evans paper that came in the kit, these labels are finding their way onto pretty much every page I make this month. I just adore them, and I wish I had been using these my whole scrapbooking life. Like, it's so easy to have just this big piece of paper and cut off the labels as you need them. You don't have to dig and look for anything. It's all right there at a glance. It's so easy. I just love this. So I'm going to place these labels around the layout in various places as well. And again, I'm just going to color match them. So I put the purple one by the light purple swatch. I put the blue one, it's like a turquoise tealy color, and I put it right between the blue and the green label swatches because it's sort of a bit purple, it's a bit green and a bit blue. So I thought that it worked well spanning two different swatches. We have a pink one up there as well. And so that's my 3 labels that create a visual triangle on the page. If you drew a line between each of those 3 labels, you'd have a nice circle that encompasses both the photo and the title. I'm going to put my journaling down here. It says heading out at midnight for the post-prom party. I underlined it just to give it a bit more presence on the label. And now this label I actually made smaller. I don't know if you caught that, but I just cut it in half and then glued it back together again so it overlapped. And you can make any size label, well, you can make a label any size smaller than what it is by doing that. And I do that all the time. It's really nice to give yourself a bit of variety in your shapes and sizes of your labels. So I definitely want to put little clusters of enamel dots on this page, and I am going to use up some of the enamel dots that came in the kit, but I'm also going to need some colors that didn't come on this sheet or that is gone already. So I have already used the turquoise ones. And so I'm going into my own enamel dot stash, which I keep my enamel dots sorted by color on these little cards that I then slip into a photo album. And enamel dots are very bulky, so I've chosen a specific kind of a photo album that has, it's a very wide photo album, so it can accommodate a lot of enamel dots, and I just had to remove a bunch of pages in order to have the album lay flat. So I'm just putting little triads of enamel dots in each of the colors by each of those chipboard flares. And that one's a wrap. And before I share the photos, just a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters. These folks help make this channel happen, so big thanks to them. Patrons get early ad-free access to all my process videos and real-time unedited versions of my videos, as well as a monthly live stream, which is sometimes very long, like this one was, and behind-the-scenes videos of my room and my process. And thanks to you also for watching all the way to the end. In a second here, you're going to see a screen that shows you all of the different places that you can find me. There are also links in the information section below. And if you do buy a Brighter Days kit or any of our MercyTiara kits, please make sure that you check out the MercyTiara Kit Club Facebook group, which you can search for on Facebook, or check out the link in the information section of this video, because we're doing lots of fun things over there, and I think you'll find it inspiring and a good resource for your kit scrapbooking, your kit-based scrapbooking. So thanks so much for watching, and have a really great scrappy week.